It is the 30th year anniversary of the 1991 Super Bowl team, arguably the best in the NFL ever. So why is that? And who are the key players that made it so special? We're having a conversation with them here at DC Prime, where all stakes are not created equal. This is the 30th year anniversary of the 1991 Super Bowl team.
That Thursday practice, there's only one other practice, and I don't know if you were, Brad, you and Mitch weren't there, but that Thursday practice we had in San Diego and the Thursday practice we had in Minneapolis were the two most intense practices I've ever seen.
Ahead of what game?
No, it wasn't. It was yeah. Super,
why were they so intense?
Because that's how we practice.
But why was it more intense?
No.
The rush
no,
was
hold
so
on.
intense on rip.
Because we want to give the best look, you know. And
No.
No?
In Buffalo, it was those people talking the trash about the Hogs that changed practice. Yeah. They call them fat pigs.
That's a good
And
point.
they came into practice, they got a little hard in the defense, capital defense. They were like, hold on now. But I think Coach Gibbs gets, because every time I talk to him, he always brings up San Diego.
San Diego was
They
like
were both very close. He gets confused by the two.
It was like a full-on practice. Like, it was like you didn't think it was like.
The game was easy.
Most games were that year.
Yeah.
I mean, well, at least for the first
the
quarter,
dress rehearsal,
until everyone else caught up.
Yeah, yep.
They didn't catch up.
The practices were, it's just, they were so intense. I mean, it's just from the very beginning.
Is that Gibbs? Is it just Gibbs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was good.
Did it work though?
It was what, kid?
Absolutely.
The practice being that
And
intense?
Gary
No,
Clark.
I think it's the people that he had on the
Gary
team.
Clark.
Players.
Yeah.
It's definitely the players.
But he had that.
But best thing about Joe was he knew motivation. He's the only coach that you truly wanted to win for. Like, you truly wanted to win for him. Like, he comes in the office. He doesn't go home. He sleeps on the cot.
Yeah.
And by the
Sleeps on the
way,
cot. Like, how can I be
at
like,
least 3 nights a week and only lived 5 or 10 minutes away. Right? So when I thought about getting in coaching, I was like, wait a minute. I worked for a guy that slept in the park 3 nights a week and only lived 5 minutes away or 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Saturday night, Sunday. That's when he slept.
Yep.
And that's when he went home.
Yep.
I had mad respect for that. How could
you not go out and play for that guy?
But wait a second,
what
is
was
that
so-
any different than other coaches you might have had?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Don't no coach sleep in no building today. There's not a coach in the NFL that does what he does. What he
And what's
did.
interesting is I would think often, because I would hear these stories about the staff, particularly the offensive staff, meeting
Don Bro would stay with him too.
1, 2
sometimes.
o'clock in the morning, and I'd think, what could they be meeting about at 1? You can only what if so many times.
And that's what it was. There was a lot of what ifs.
There was a lot of what ifs. And then it happened, we've all experienced this on both sides of the ball, offense and defense, where the staff would come in, and I would hear this on offense and experience it on defense, where they would come in and have these overly simplistic adjustments, and you're almost like they're drawing in the sand.
Exactly.
And you're like, this is so simple, there's no way this would work. It'd be the exact thing that needed to happen that would work. And it's
Why did they need to oversimplify, you think?
No, I don't think they needed to.
Yeah,
I think they
it
just
was the
they studied. They met so long, and they were so intense on getting the right things that I remember
it was insight.
Yeah,
It
I
was
remember.
actually insight into the
They would put in a thing, and they said Coach Gibbs would say, after we run this, they're going to adjust and run this, and then we're going to do this. So if you hear me on radio, I always talk about coaches need to learn how to adjust. This man had a plan for the adjustment. These coaches today, listen, I know a lot of coaches getting paid a lot of money. It's because of the time. It's not because they're that good. They don't adjust for years, for weeks, months. He practiced the adjustment in practice. It's just, listen, when I say he's the best coach I've ever seen in my life, I'm not just saying it because. I'm saying it because he's the best coach I've ever seen. I've never had a coach ever tell me about, this is what they're gonna adjust to this by running this, and then we're gonna run this.
We were fortunate because, one, we had a 40-second clock, so which is different than they have now. You know, have like 35-second or 30-second. So we had an opportunity to put ourselves in an advantageous position offensively. You know, defensively it was tough too because, I mean, you had, you know, what Richie did and your adjustments you guys made. But we basically took teams that were very complicated and simplified things because our shifting and motion, they couldn't do all the things that they wanted to do. So we had tendencies at defenses, and that's why Joe Gibbs is always so good at adjusting at halftime, because we had tendencies at teams, what they did throughout the course of the year, but it changed because of playing us. They became more simplified and more vanilla than most teams, and I think it's one of the reasons why we were so successful, because we shifted motion, we had smart guys, we had smart receivers, new blitz breakoffs.
But we also got to remember that 91 season, Rip. 65% of the offense was checked with me. That's you. That's
Yeah.
you
He
calling.
gave a
That's
lot.
you calling.
He gave a lot.
He never gave anybody that type of reign before.
He gave
ever.
a lot of reign to
He gave you a lot
us,
of reign.
and I wouldn't say
No,
me,
we're
but
not
us.
calling. You're calling the play. It's
Yeah,
not
I
us.
know. But when we go out,
We're performing the play. Yes, we're not calling the
Gary,
play.
when we go out there on a Wednesday and we have that walkthrough on a Wednesday, I mean, it was almost like the coaches tested us to see how smart are these guys, you know? How much can they absorb, and how good are they, both defensively and offensively, and even in special teams? Because we gave as much time in a practice on special teams than any other team in the league, because we felt that was an integral part, which it was.
It made a difference.
And ended up being, you know,
Well,
with this guy
so-
right here. And
And Joe knew to stay in his lane. He was
Yep.
smart. Like, defense was defense.
Yep.
You know, he stayed out of defense.
Yep.
That's why
That was Richie. Richie did his own thing.
That was on
Hey, baby,
That was
hey,
on
baby,
Right.
baby.
He did. And
Was
then-
it that work well for you?
Right.
Come on, Brad.
Remember, he had this thing where he wanted every defensive player to wrap up an offense. You know, he wanted the offensive player to basically score a touchdown and go as far as that person could, receiver or running back, and he wanted every defensive player to come down and
At least
full
touch him.
speed and wrap them up and let them go, which is really harder to do. It's easier for me to go tackle you than it is to at that speed to wrap you up and let you go. And it sometimes
That
that
was a
year-
mindset.
It was a mindset, and so at some point that year, I mean, we were maybe in week 13 or 14 or something like that, late in the year, and I had done this right 1,000 times. And so, you know, Gerald Riggs, who is
a monster.
a monster.
Yeah.
He's 250.
Yeah. Huge.
Nobody wants to hit Gerald Riggs, right? And so it was the offensive period. I'm on the scout team running a couple plays, and Gerald takes a stretch play off to the right and goes all, you know, and I was the farthest guy on the other side of the field. And so I catch up to him maybe 40 or 50 yards downfield, and I'm thinking, okay, I don't have to hit this big load of a guy, go wrap him up at this point. And so I sort of run by him, and I look back and kind of start to go back to the huddle. And I see Gibbs, who rarely came to the defensive side of the field. And I see him walking down the field, and I'm thinking, oh, that's odd, right? What's he doing as I get closer to the huddle? He's clearly making a beeline for me, and I'm thinking, okay, this is really odd. Like this is starting to get a little uncomfortable. So he comes over and he goes, "Listen, Brad, you know we have this reason we do this, you know, for a reason. I want you to wrap up the running backs and the receivers, and so this will help you in a game." And the guy walks off, and I'm like, man, this guy doesn't miss anything. Like, he's got eyes in the back of his head.
Detail's
I mean, his
incredible.
But see,
details down to the nth degree.
I think that's the thing where when I look at football today, people think I'm just mean and crazy, but no, I get disappointed because we were taught by a guy who made sure we did everything the right way all the time. When you got into the game, like you say, the game was fun. I remember getting to Philadelphia, and I remember Corey Simon saying, "Man, why you always laughing and going so hard?" I say, because I work in the off season. This is fun. It's a camera and a TV. I'm on TV right now. Yeah. I'm going to do all of this stuff, you know. But I think Coach Gibbs made sure we went through we saw just a few days ago, the Dallas Cowboys run a play and they can't get up and spike it. How many times we ran that play that you would have never saw that stupidity happen?
In practice, yeah, a million times.
And he always went over the possibilities. Wayne Severe
was a clock management guy for our team, and he came to Joe and said, "Joe, we don't have to run a player. Joe, we need to do this." It was amazing.
But you remember, you saw in a game over the weekend, a few weekends ago, where the guy caught the ball and ran out of bounds. Kick returner.
Right.
Put your foot out of bounds, then catch it. You're considered out of bounds. Get the ball in 25.
We did. How many times
They
we did
didn't.
that?
They didn't teach him that,
We
but he
did
always
that
asked
every
questions.
day. You did that.
There you go.
We covered everything.
It's a testament to how Coach Gibbs, first of all, did it. 3 Super Bowls. The only one in franchise history. 3 different quarterbacks.
3 different running backs.
3 different running backs.
3 different safeties.
3 different safeties. So the point being is he had some sort of a system and philosophy that seemed
Gary,
to work.
except
of a
Gary
team.
Clark.
Gary has a couple.
There's a common. I'm about
Gary has
common
two.
denominators here. Joe Gibbs, Gary Clark.
So Gary, then why don't you tell us what was the difference from Coach Gibbs from the 2 Super Bowls that you won, and you were there for all of the years?
I mean, for me, it was just he was a great strategist. That's what Joe was. He was a great strategist. He would put the strategy in, and then he would allow the football players to tweak it to make it football ready. Because everything that you draw up on paper doesn't necessarily work in the game. So we would come in game ready, tweak it. Hence why 65% of our offense was checked with me. Mark seeing what's going on an every down basis, he can tweak it and be like, okay, I'm going to run this play because I already see this can happen. So we get down, and the nice thing about that too is they can't measure that. They can't because they can't measure that on film because they don't know what you're thinking. They know what Joe's thinking maybe, but they don't know what you're thinking. So to be able not to measure that, I think that allowed us to become great football players because at the end of the day, I'm never going to run to be covered. That's just stupid. So I'll go back and I'll tell Mark, I'll be like, Mark, I know I'm supposed to run a corner, but I'm going to run a hook because every time I give that guy a 3-step post move, he's going to the corner. So they game planned us. They watch film on us too.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Third down in situation, Clark runs a corner route a lot of times. So I'm giving the guy a 3-step post move. I'm going this way and he's going that way. They game planned us. So I'm like, okay, but you're not going to be right.
Why did Gibbs trust you with that freedom then with Gary?
He's brilliant.
We asked the same thing.
Yeah, well, everyone's still trying to figure that one out.
As long as it worked. If it didn't work,
Somebody has to have the answer
There are lots
here.
of good reasons for Mark's intellect.
I went to the Harvard of the Pac-10, Washington State University.
Still is.
I had a great.
No, they're the Washington State of the Ivy League.
Exactly. So I had a great football IQ. I might be a brain dead in life, but as a football IQ, I love the game. I love the X's and O's, the people and the players. And I think we go always back to what the physicality of our team. There was one word you guys will hear, and you'll know that it's a Joe Gibbs word, click. Hey, we have to have a good click today. Hey, we need to go out and have a good click. It was his language of saying, we need to be physical in practice.
Bring it.
We have a guy that comes upfield and he's going to be tackled and he went out of bounds, every single guy on that team would have a little chat with that individual and say, that's not football. That football is to get an extra 5-6 yards, turn it upfield, get north and south. That's where the
We're
game
not
is
Franco
won.
Harris.
Yes. This is what we did. This is how we were coached. This is how we prepared. And this is how we went out and played. And it was an attitude more so than anything else. And it was taught by our leader, Joe Gibbs. And we had great guys, 3 of them here in this room. And it was just amazing group of guys that
Great
appreciated
culture.
it.
When I tell
culture.
you guys, I definitely want to get to the culture. What makes the culture of a Super Bowl winning team?
Yeah, culture starts in it has many types of facets to it, and it's part of the esprit de corps that existed within that team. And I noticed that because I'd come from another team. I'd played for the Minnesota Vikings my first 2 years in the league, and been very good. 2 very good teams, had been number 1 in the NFL in defense those first 2 years. A great staff. Pete Carroll was on that staff, and Monty
Jack
Kiffin.
Del Rio was there?
Yeah, it was a great staff. But the minute I walked into the locker room in Washington, you noticed something was very different. Guys came up, they spoke to you, they welcomed you, but it wasn't in a superficial way. It was very much a.
It was setting you up.
Expectation.
We got a guy coming in. His name's Brian Mitchell.
Yeah.
We got.
No, they set you up.
But it was very
right.
much we're bringing you into this organization, and there's a way that we do things here collectively, and if you're going to be here, this is the way we do things.
Yeah.
And
The expectations.
the expectations were high, and we want to make sure those expectations are being met.
When
I think when they talk about culture, Julie, they always talk about culture, and people think everybody got to be the same people.
No. Yeah.
They came in and said, listen, if you reach this, you can do whatever the hell you want to do. And I would say the reason I am the way I am with all these guys because they came to you and talked to you when you wasn't on the practice field to tell you what little thing can help you. And then also told you what little thing can help you in life. The thing I love about this whole football team, they didn't just talk to you about football 24/7. They say, okay, for you to be better on the football field, we got to improve you off the football field. Because I was the renegade. I was the wild kid.
Yep.
I'm the young dude in here. I was the little wild kid.
Is he about right?
I was the wild kid. And I had.
But we only had a handful of those guys, and Joe was able to reel those guys in because of the core of guys.
There you go. And it didn't make a difference who you were, black, white, whether you're a punk rocker or a religious guy, whatever. Everybody, we were family
walks of life,
at the end of the day.
Socioeconomic.
There you go.
And by the way, we're talking about that today. Wonderful thing that I knew about this football team and is we did things on and off the field together. In the off season, there was no free agency. You know, you were destined for Washington, D.C. You became an integral part of this community. You did things charity-wise, whether it be Darryl Green's foundation, if Brad or Brian or Gary or myself had something going on, we were there for each other. Right. And we became one with this community here in Washington, D.C., and that was part of what Joe Gibbs believed. And he was maybe one of the first coaches that said, hey, I think it's important that you stick around here during the off season. Mm-hmm. And because we didn't have at that time, you had to be 24/7 here.
I don't know that he said it was important.
You'd mandated it?
I mean, there are mandates.
That's right.
There are requests and there are mandates.
Yes, but
if
he said
if you talk about like today's team, I did hear that was one of a priority for Chase Young. He said he wants to stay in better connection through his teammates throughout the off season because it does matter to have that chemistry.
It matters, but it has to be
real.
What it really is.
Right.
Yeah.
See, the problem with, and I'll say it, in this day and age, a lot of people like to say what they think is right. They don't live it. Mm-hmm. So back then, if I stayed here in the off season, which I haven't left since April of 1990, I've been here ever since. I've lived here, and even when I moved to the other cities, I was still living here. Because when I got here, I remember one of the players tell me, man, you need to get you a house. And I'm thinking to myself, I ain't made no damn team yet. I don't know, buddy. Coach Gibbs walked up and said, I think you need to get you a place. You know, get you a place to stay. You're going to be good. Anything Coach Gibbs said, I believe, because I didn't see him as a fake person. When he said something to you in private, he said the same thing on the airwaves. So you got to make sure, you can't be inconsistent. I don't care who you are, coach, GM, owner, whoever. If you're consistent, you can get anybody to run through a wall for you. If you're inconsistent, they're going to question you.
Consistency he has, apparently, again, because he did get 3 Super Bowls with this team. When I tell you, gentlemen, this is the 30-year anniversary of that 91 team. Hey, Gary, what does that mean to you? What does that take you to?
Takes me that I'm older than I thought I was. For sure.
It goes by fast, huh?
But it reminds me of greatness. It truly does, you know. And for me, the main reason Joe Gibbs' teams won football games is the people that he brought in had one thing truly in common. We all like to win, we do. We freaking hated to lose. We hated to lose with a passion. We hated to lose more than we ever liked to.
Y'all didn't lose a lot, especially that 91 season. You only lost 2 games by a combined 5 points.
Well, one of them we gave it to the Eagles because we played preseason in that game. And we just gave it to them.
Against Dallas.
And if we had another 2 minutes in that game,
Dallas,
we won that ball game.
It was a tip ball, and Ricky had a touchdown that kept us from winning that game. So, I mean, essentially, the Dolphins' record is null and void.
So to you guys, you're undefeated. Which
I love because this is really a crucial point because whenever lots of times, I don't say always, but a majority of the time I've ever been together with lots of these guys, and we start talking about that Super Bowl year. The bone of contention is we should have gone undefeated, which is another reason why that team was great, because 17-2 was not good enough. No. It really was not.
Well, you guys played a lot of tough teams that year,
not
too.
Good enough. It's like, why did we go undefeated?
But imagine that, though. We're 17-2 and we're complaining about it.
But
It would have
the
ended the
majority of
discussion
the
who the best
teams-
Super Bowl team in history would have
Right.
been. If we are undefeated, hands down,
they're hands
we're the
down.
best.
But the
hands down,
majority-
there's no conversation about it.
Nope.
The majority of the teams you defeated were really strong teams. They had at least 10 wins, if not even 11 wins that year.
Yeah. There's a guy.
Why not?
Dr. Eric Thomas.
I mean,
Cheers.
hey.
Greatest team in the history of the NFL. Right?
That's what I say.
Right, yeah.
But
Okay.
Dr. Eric Thomas,
Arguably.
he
Cheers.
said,
So-
weak and lazy people never ever think about working hard enough. But successful people and great people, they work as hard as they possibly can, but they still wonder if I'm working hard enough. That's how this football team was. We were 17-2, won the Super Bowl. We still want to be better.
And this is what you see. You see after practice is over. You see those other guys on the field after practice is over, still doing their thing to get better. To me, that's just huge. To me, that's just huge.
Running routes.
That's when you truly get better.
I mean, that's.
Practice is over and you're still doing your thing.
We had consummate pros. I mean, that's exactly what we had on our football team. Everyone looked to get better, and inevitably we were.
So we hear that all the time, that the 91 team is arguably, still to this day, the best Super Bowl team that we've seen. Why is that?
Games were over at halftime. That's not good.
I think if you look at the amount of points scored, the differentiation, the statistical outcomes on offense, and then the statistical outcomes on defense, and the turnover
Don't forget the
ratio.
other area.
And then the
That's
most
offense, defense,
important
and special.
area,
There you go.
special teams. They call it special for a reason.
But I just think that
But if you look at those versus the competition and the quality of the competition that year and the average to above average teams that you played.
You got to look at this as the NFC East. If you came out of the NFC East and made it in the playoffs, you were battle tested.
Yeah.
Arguably the greatest conference, and if you came out of the NFC East, think about it.
If you came out of East, you won.
Think about who we had. Think about frickin' who we had. Reggie White, Lawrence Taylor.
Every season for there's a couple exceptions to the rules, of course, but typically the Raiders won one year, the Bears won one year, but typically it was Washington, Giants, or Dallas.
San Francisco.
And San Francisco was the wild card. That was it.
But I
So
said
here it
to a
is,
lot-
at home that year, you went 7-1, and you outscored opponents 271-88.
Well, that sucks.
Julie,
because
we were
lost to
kicking
Dallas
ass
at home.
and taking
we lost
names.
to Dallas at home.
But you know what, though? That's what I say to those people saying, I don't care what y'all do. You could, as long as you beat Dallas twice and don't beat anybody. We lost to Dallas that year. We were 17-2.
At home.
We won the Super Bowl.
Right.
Those fans are not talking about us losing to Dallas. They're talking about this right here.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? And that's the whole thing about it. I think if people listening, they would say, oh, man, everything. You know what? Everything was as good as we said. Now, we tested each other. We battled each other. But at the end of the day, practice was practice. After I got finished talking trash or trying to stiff arm, I was stiff arm Dirty Al, and he told me, wait till you get this card. I was like, what the hell is wrong with this dude here? But we went hard in practice. But then outside of practice, hey, man, let's go have not a glass of wine. We drank beer back then.
Yeah.
We drank a lot of beer.
Club.
A lot of us didn't get invited to the 5 o'clock. None of us got invited here to the 5 o'clock club. You might have got invited.
I was invited because I hung out in the back with them.
You might have got invited.
Yeah, I didn't get invited.
What is 5 o'clock club?
It's a club we can't talk about here.
we can't
30 years later, we can share
Michael,
with
just say
our
this.
National treasure.
Let's just say this.
You can't tell.
It was
Right
a
now-
club. It was a club that met privately after 5. They did things that nobody knows about, and that's how it's gonna remain.
By the way, right now I could make the 5 o'clock club. You have to be 280 pounds and over.
So let me talk about that.
I don't think they were 280 then.
Let me talk
No,
about
some were, right.
the 280 pounds for you,
Yep.
Mark. Because that year, the Super Bowl year, you only sacked 7 times.
Yeah.
It's fleet of foot.
Yeah, he was running from
Okay,
that.
so how much can we say the fleet of foot or those hogs in front
Can we
of
say
them?
the word dainty here tonight?
Sure, if that's what you want to say. Is that
This is a reason why we're so good, and I'll give credit to a guy here that's not here today. Ernest Biner was a huge part of what we did on offense, blitz protection, understanding the offense,
Blitz pickups, man.
running the football, hot reads. These guys, Gary, Art, and Ricky, hot reads, all part of that 7 sacks. And incredible, because, I mean, like I say, you don't get sacked 7 times.
Well, those 5 guys in front of you is very special.
You're only as good as the guys up front.
So
only as good as the guys
how
up
did he
front.
appreciate having his jersey so clean?
Rick could have worn the same jersey.
Was this jersey ever dirty?
I got him some Rolexes. They had time that he needed to be there, you know?
There you go. There you go.
It's not like today, like you had that jersey. It was that jersey. If it got a hole torn in it, they sewed it up. You had that jersey.
It was the same jersey.
We didn't get a jersey every week.
There was 14 jerseys they have now in the NFL, but we had one
Yeah.
jersey, and that thing was never, there was anything on
Don't let it get too ripped up.
There's so many weapons on that team. I think that is something that gets maybe lost. You tried to make this point earlier, but it gets a little lost in translation. When you look at the quality of the offensive line, the quarterback, the running backs, the receiving core, the tight end, it was the range of skill sets there was just extreme and
incomprehensible.
And when you flip it over to defense, it's the exact same way.
And you're thinking about that, and you're like, you got a guy like Gary Clark coming down the field, and you're like, oh man, this guy could run right by me in a split second. It's just.
But then you can do the same thing, and you can sit there and you can name Fred Stokes and Tim Johnson and
Fred
Charles
Stokes got
Mann
every
and Eric
fumble that
Williams
happened that year.
and Darryl Green and Martin Mayhew and Danny Copeland and Brad Edwards.
He still can't take credit. See what's happening.
No, but he's right though.
These guys are the heart and soul of what they did and what we appreciated, you know. And then you take Mitch and the John Brandises and the Reggie Branches and the guys on the
Low Miller.
And Chip Johnny Lowmiller, you know.
So you take it. You really they really compiled as good a group of talent as you can get on offense, and a group of great thinkers on defense, and players that can really execute. And you put that in special teams clearly, and you put that together in a great culture. And I think in the '90 season when I first got there, I saw a couple of things that were caught my eye. One, the way that the guys practiced in the off season, which was really incredible. You know, Daryl, I worked out with Daryl, and the first time he took me out to the
I did it one time and never went back.
And I'm thinking, I'm going to go show these guys how to work. And I mean, it was
The Hill's no joke.
The Hill was no joke, and the Hill's still behind my office today.
Daryl and Art, both they did
those
that
guys.
hill.
I mean, you did like 80 of those hills, and it's
Gary,
just
you did that hill.
Training was.
Bro.
I think it was a big, huge thing for all.
I went one time. I said no.
I gotta get
my game is power.
Is this Daryl in particular, or the team training in particular?
Oh no, I just think a culture in particular.
Yeah, okay.
And I will say that
culture,
culture was led by a guy named Dan Riley.
Yeah.
And let me tell you something. Dan Riley and Bubba Tyre, two underrated, I wouldn't say underrated guys, but when you're being fed double quarter pounders with cheese, French fries every single day.
That's why they worked so damn hard.
Every single day.
It's not that way anymore. So
That's what we ate every single day. Honest to God.
So I think the culture, the way they worked, and then something, it might have been the first or second week that I was there in the 90s season, the year before, when I knew this team really could be great. It was on a Friday, and the team is practicing like at game speed. I mean, it's like crazy game speed already, and you're getting into games, and the game is a little bit slow for it was the first time in my life that I had ever experienced this, where I got into an NFL or collegiate game. I played a high level collegiately, where the game was actually a little bit slow for the first maybe quarter till the other team kind of caught up. And that's how fast we practiced. And it was maybe the second or third week. I'm trying to remember which week it was, and if I thought about it a little bit longer, I could maybe identify it. But on a Friday, somebody made a mistake on there was a question on the defensive side. Somebody went in motion on offense, and there was a question about who has that person. And Joe stopped practice and got the whole staff on the side. And I went, oh my God, this guy, he might not be threatening jobs, but
attention to detail.
You could see the look of seriousness on the coaching staff's face. It was like, why is there a question? We're playing in 2 days. This should be a dress rehearsal. Why is there a question today? And I went,
Attention to detail.
This guy is different, and this team is going to be great.
So, is that the moment that you realized that this team had it?
Yes, absolutely.
What about for you guys? When did you know that this team was going to be that team?
I think it was a weekly thing, and I think everybody will understand this guy I'm talking about. He's probably the oldest guy on the team at the time, and he had the best body of anybody on the team, probably still the best body today, Monty Coleman.
Oh,
Superman.
And Monty Coleman,
Superman.
we win the first week, and he comes in and he says, we 0-0, we got to win next week. We 7-0, this dude's still telling me we hadn't won a game yet, we got to win next week. They always kept things into perspective. And Monty was a guy who had been there for a long time. I think mine was a 12th round draft pick or something like that. But Monty was like that E.F. Hutton type. When he spoke, people listened. And that dude basically, that year, I remember when we finally lost that first game to Dallas, and he was like, don't worry about it. We got to win next week. We'll be leading 37-0 at halftime or whatever it was, and he'll come out and say, we got to win the second half. I'm like, dude, we're killing these dudes. He never, ever allowed me as a guy who, I'm like, man, we kicking these dudes' ass. We ain't got to do nothing. You know, he always made me not get complacent. And I'm sure other guys were impacted the same way as I was, you know, listening to Monty, because he had done it before. He'd been in all those Super Bowls. He was in the previous 2 wins. He lost that game before. And the way he approached everything was, we haven't done anything yet. We got to do it next week. I'm like, we already won 11 games, dude. What are you talking about?
Okay, the franchise has not done that since then. You realize that? Mm-hmm. In 30 years.
Yeah.
They've not won 11 games since.
I left.
How hard is that to
Common
do?
denominators.
How hard is that to do?
I left.
Oh, you can't play forever, Gary.
Joe Gibbs and Gary Court left.
Joe left and I left.
Joe left. Two things. Two things happened.
Joe left and I left.
I actually think when Joe left, a certain level of professionalism, and that was coaches, players, and all. When Jack Ken Cook was here, Jack Ken Cook is as tough an owner as anybody else, but he also understood that the people that I hired need to be damn good at their jobs. Yep. And one thing I've always said, when you're dealing with football, the football guy has to be able to have final say in a lot of stuff. That football guy was Coach Joe Gibbs. Charlie Cassidy was here as a general manager, but I think Joe had more power than Charlie, although he would give Charlie respect and listen to him. But I think the whole thing about it is when you drafted you. Drafted me. And when you are that guy who has the power, you can't waver in what you do. You have to be the same guy day in and day out, week in and week out, year in and year out, because people are going to be expecting you to do it. I guarantee you, if Coach Gibbs came back right now and say, I want to get some guys back together, and we're going to go try and play a game, he'll get some of our crazy asses to sign up because we believe in him that much.
No tackle? Is that okay for you?
No, he's going to be tackled. I'll try.
No tackling?
A little bit could be anything just because you trust.
Yeah.
Trust to him is just, it's what, I mean, it's quite honest, what great stories are made of. It's what great movies are made of. I mean, he's the real deal, though. He's fiction come to life at the end of the day.
His attention to detail is just, I cannot overemphasize.
Here's the one thing that Joe did is he kept a lot of us maybe a little longer in the tooth than he should have, but he understood what they meant in the locker room, how much of a pro they were. And when the game changed and Joe understood that free agency was now taken over and he didn't have control of what he could have control over, and that's not necessarily in any way, shape, or form trying to control us. He just had an opportunity to understand the guys that he wanted to be there that fit into his system and that made us what we were. And we were the Washington Redskins. We were special, and we had something that was different than any other team had, and I think that was important.
That was also winning the Super Bowl. So what do you remember most, Mark, about that game? I mean, you came in, you were saying you didn't sleep.
I remember
most about that. Your ankle was
because
banged up. What do you remember most about that? What led into the sleepless nights and getting to that game?
Well,
his haircut,
excitement.
his haircut.
The worst haircut in the world, according to some lady reporter says, you know, outside of his awful haircut, we had a good season. And I'm like, all right, this is what it is. I still got a head of hair, but it was almost moments like that, bulletin board stuff like that actually, the Bills defensive coordinator calling out our guys, a bunch of fat guys, and
That's what I remember.
yep. And then coming to
How does that ignite?
to Minneapolis, well, I think it just kind of says that our guys are human beings. They're people that have been disrespected by someone, and they're probably the best of their trait in the league and have been for a number of years. So to do that in the public eye gave them an incentive to go out there and say, let's bring it. And
It ignited him to a certain point that he almost didn't make the game.
yeah.
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, it's just because of the energy that we had at that practice on Thursday. I mean, it was so intense.
Oh, they're
And
coming after you.
The challenge that our guys said, bring it, right? Come on, I want to see everything you got. And because of that, it's like, all right, well, this is a Thursday practice.
In the early one of the first collisions, and I think Gerald Riggs was involved in this, and over on the sideline, and John Madden turned to Charlie, our
Castle.
no, not Charlie Casserly, our
Dayton.
SID Charlie Dayton.
Dayton,
Who's
yeah.
awesome. Charlie,
Yes,
love
yes,
Charlie
yep,
Dayton.
yep.
And said, "Oh my God, this game is over." It's a huge collision of it. He said, "This game is over," from what I was told. So it's that, but that started that.
He was right.
He was right. I mean,
The Super Bowl we had-
intensity of that was
Super Bowl we had in 86, 87. A lot of people don't, or at least
I remember that.
Brad and Brian don't realize, but Gary and I were there. Joe took us about 30 miles outside of San Diego. Lawrence Welk Resort. We stay at the Lawrence Welk Resort the night before.
And you're
our
really aging yourself if you know who.
We did that in Minnesota too, though. He took us
I
way
remember
out
the Lawrence
there.
Welk
in the middle of the field too. Yeah.
And we got
I remember the Lawrence Welk show. I don't remember a Lawrence Welk football practice.
Nope, but he did the
Right.
same thing on Super Bowl 26. He took us about 40 miles outside of Minneapolis and said, we're going to get away from all the hoopla.
So you went dancing.
No, we had Lawrence Welk tiny.
Remember I said
Yeah, you
earlier.
did the showboat. You like were out there all
There
like
was no dancing going
I
on.
said
on that.
earlier I was a
Lawrence Welk
renegade.
no
There was
dancing.
crickets. That's all you heard out
Julie,
there.
I did look out my
And
window to
I could
see.
not
I
wait.
said,
We were so far outside of town. I could not wait. And we got an early.
It was 20 below zero. We got
got
good taxi
early-
rides.
yeah,
and
but I
bus
looked
rides
outside
and-
the window and I was like, man, I mean, and I look and all I can see is snow for days.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, hell, I mean, no need to leave out of this hotel because you'll never get nowhere.
There was a bunch of us who got
Does that
a shuttle
help you
early
think?
to go downtown.
Do you think that helps? Like, because I feel like today's athlete gets distracted a little bit potentially by where they go.
You couldn't get distracted by anything.
At the Lawrence Welk retreat.
And this place.
There's nothing up there.
The place we stayed at here, it had to be.
I mean-
I guarantee they did a horror movie at it.
So
there was
the
nothing
game,
around.
The game,
By the way, we
the
might
game
have
starts.
been, like the old saying, we ain't in Kansas anymore, Toto.
Yeah.
We might have
We're
been
not.
in Kansas.
Okay,
I don't know.
so you get to the game.
I got
There's
the
a,
game.
there's a false kickoff.
I got the game 7 hours before. Myself, Chip Lomero, and Eric Williams.
7
were up
hours?
At like 8. Yeah, we're up at like 8 in the morning.
Yeah, I got there 3.5 hours early, and Rip is already there.
I'm sleeping. I'm
What were
taking
you
a nap.
doing
I'm
7
trying
hours
to get
before?
my nap because I didn't sleep at all that night. I'm up at 5. Again, I'll tell you this. Up at 5 in the morning thinking I'd go down there and have a coffee. There's 15 other players down there. 15 other players at 5 in the morning, that couldn't sleep either. So
So it's just the nerves.
yeah.
Okay, so when you do get to the game, it's like you're ready. It's a false
Yeah.
kickoff. You gotta like reset. What are just the emotions then? I guess going into that moment in that game.
For me, it
Gary?
was just excitement. Like, I was excited to go out there and play. Just really wanted to go out there and play. And I really wanted to win because losing is not an option it's nothing worse. 86 went to a championship game and we lost, right? I kind of sucked too that game.
Second
as
place,
well.
first loser.
Worst. This is the worst thing I've ever felt in my life. I would have rather went 1-15 and never got there. To get to that close and lose, I promised myself after I said, if I ever get the opportunity to come back, we're not going to lose that freaking football game, and I'm going to do everything. I'm not going to be a reason why we lose because I was part of the reason why we lost in 86. I had a touchdown, I could have dropped it, so that's the worst feeling ever, to let your teammates down, and it's your fault. And you guys, me, I call people out all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Like, at the end of the day, and there's nothing worse when you have to call yourself out. Because I had to call myself out too, and you lose, and you're part of the reason why. Like you know you're part of the reason why. I hate when people try to act like, well, it's a team sport 100%. But when the guy threw me the ball and I dropped it, nobody dropped the ball but me. That's my fault. That's my fault. And it's the worst feeling I ever had because to this day I can't stand to lose. And I'm crying after a loss. I'm pretty much unconsolable at the end of the day, and I'm just sitting there raving like quiet tears are coming out, By the time I get home, same thing. 3 o'clock in the morning, I go out and I start doing my thing. I was like, I'm going to be prepared. I'm not, because, this is my first Pro Bowl. I'm kind of feeling myself. The guys can't cover me. I kind of took off.
By the way, they couldn't.
Right.
Being on the other side of the field, like
I did drop it, but
when I first got to Washington, I was like, thank God I'm on the same team with Gary Clark. Like, I don't have to play against him anymore. I was like, my God, this guy is like a nightmare. Yeah, he's a nightmare. But when he says he goes out and he was like, if you heard a closet trainer, that's this guy. Like, he would train at all kind of crazy hours. Like, if you thought he wasn't training, like, he's training at all kind of crazy hours, day and night. I mean, it's nuts.
True. I remember when Ricky Sanders came to town, right? I looked at Ricky, I'm always looking and observing. Ricky's my boy. He's like probably ended up being my closest friend on the team, him and Art, right? But I see how good he is. We're roommates. I'd wait till Ricky go to sleep, and I'd go train. I wait till he go to sleep. I go hit it. I go out there and train.
Played golf, Ricky.
By the time I come back in, Ricky hadn't woke up. I'm just like I've never done anything. He was that good.
I just can't. I cannot overemphasize how much vertical space that a guy like Gary Clark created for you within a defense because of the respect as the safety group would play. I mean, you just could not take a chance to tighten up that.
It's because every route he ran was a go route.
Yeah,
and he
you
turned that go route into a hitch.
You never knew when
Yeah.
when that one time that he's going to double move you and run right by you, and so you had to respect that every single play, and it created so much vertical space for the rest of the offense to operate in that you just can never give that enough credit. It'll never get enough credit.
Didn't you have a moment in the Super Bowl game where you told your defender what you were going to do, and he still couldn't? Is that just arrogance, or is that just you
athletic
just knew?
arrogance, as Coach Gibbs would say.
Football is a game of trash talking. It's just what it is. And the best thing about being an offensive player, even if I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do, and I would do it, I could also be lying. I could tell you I'm going.
Oh, so you're playing
corner.
mind games.
Well,
I'm going corner. They have to respect that.
Gotta hope you're not running
Tell me the
press
truth.
covers,
Tell me the
cover
truth. Tell me the
one,
truth. People gonna
because
lie
I'm gonna
this
beat your
time.
ass.
Right. I know, right?
But this guy made it easy. He made it so easy for me in '91. It's just, I mean,
Well, you think
I had
about the
10
big-
touchdowns that year.
Think
right?
about the big plays we had. I mean,
Dude, Mark, I averaged like 45 yards a touchdown catch. That's unheard of.
Today, if you put
just
Gary
crazy.
Clark in this system today in a slot
and not being
position,
touched, or even on the outside, not being
Yeah, they
touched.
should.
and there's
hang all
no
over you back
combo
then.
man. There's no
Yeah. Nope.
there's no 2-on-1s,
it's-
3-on-2s, or 4-on-3s. You don't see any of that
By the way,
stuff today.
There's a statistic they should have in this game that Gary would have the record, bar none. He had a 96-yard reception that didn't score. Remember that? Against Philadelphia.
I don't know.
We got 96 yards, and you went like 180 yards and got tackled at the 2-yard line. It was like, I'm like going, I've never seen this. 90, it was like 9, we were like at the 2-yard line, he went to their 2-yard line and got tackled.
Well,
That's the
like
worst
when
He
ever.
ran
we played
180-something yards.
Oh, to get though, I mean, he turned a 14-yard dig route into 96 yards.
Those zigzagging, I'm
That's
sure.
like we played. We were playing Detroit.
had to.
We were playing Detroit in the championship game, and Barry Sanders takes that in the first series. He takes that little stretch play off to the right, and goes up about 6 yards, makes about 10 people miss, comes back behind the line of scrimmage, and gets tackled for a 6-yard gain and gained like 105 yards in that one play.
It made 6 yards, yeah.
The whole defensive line missed the rest of the first quarter because they were all gassed.
But that you take it back to that. Barry Sanders, one of the greatest running backs in the history.
Arguably the
Best I've ever played.
He couldn't do it against Richie Pettibone's defenses.
He couldn't do it on grass.
We
either
beat
in
them
RFK.
45-0 in the first game.
Yeah, and those guys knew, and this is Richie's genius, is that he and Larry Piccatello and Emmett Thomas knew that those teams running that run and shoot, in particular the Bills in the hurry-up system were guessing. They were guessing, particularly in the running game. You know, when you're coming up there and you're trying to call it on the, no huddle and call it on the run, you don't really know what you're going to get. And they figured that out, and they were like, if we can just bring pressure from every different place we can, every gap, and mix in a few zones here and there and give them a bunch of different looks with a bunch of different smart guys, we could really defend that. And they really ran that system out of the league.
When it comes to trying to defend you guys, at the Super Bowl, you're up 17-0 at the half. Like, what's the message in the locker room when you're at that point?
Keep grinding. Monty Coleman again. It's 0-0. We got to win the second half.
Yeah.
I don't care if we were winning,
Is there a
losing, or
chance
tied.
because I feel like I hear like there's a lot of arrogant, like you guys just knew you were
We
that
weren't
good.
arrogant. We
No,
were
it was
confident.
like-
Like I told my teacher, my ninth grade teacher,
There's a
Opposite.
difference,
Really.
totally difference from arrogance.
my
confidence.
my ninth grade teacher say, "You're arrogant." I said, "Nope, I'm convinced."
Those are some
She said, "What do you mean?" I said, "I
determination.
worked so damn hard. I'm convinced I'm one of the best." I think everybody in that locker room felt that way.
Yeah, and I also think it's bull that they say we didn't have superstars. We had superstars. We had superstars. We had Gary. We had Art. We had Charles. We had Daryl. We had
Wilbur
superstars.
Marshall was on that squad.
Why do they
But
have
when we
names
played
for all?
Buffalo, obviously they were known for everyone and anyone, and so we took a back seat to that, which was great because we didn't care about any of that. We just cared about.
Did I tell y'all the story about the Buffalo when I knew we were going to win the game?
No, tell me that.
We're at the Super Bowl, and I went to this place, something gold, solid gold, I think it was. I happened to go in the
And
bathroom.
Jim Kelly was in there.
And I saw,
Gary's
and I-
what you're talking
I don't
about.
know about gold.
and I saw Jim Kelly
I was in the
leaning
hotel.
on Warren Moon like this.
I went on our
And he
record. I
could
was in the
barely, he
hotel.
could barely stand up.
Hey, by the way, my brother was there too.
I walked, and this is no lie, I said, there's no damn way y'all gonna beat us.
This
And
is
I
the night
walked off.
before?
Yes.
I'm a second-year guy.
night
Not the night
before.
before.
No, this
Not
is
the
like
night before.
Tuesday or
It's like-
Wednesday.
it's like a-
We had like a Monday night off,
Yeah, yeah.
where we didn't have any
It was
practice.
early in the week, but I'm like looking. I'm like, there's no damn way they're gonna beat us. The night before, you remember? The night before, we were at this
Brian.
place where we don't know where the hell we were.
Brian,
You
I
did say you
But I
wanted
knew
to wheel
that,
in.
Julie. I was 22, 23 in the Super Bowl. I was going to enjoy some festivities right at the time. I was at this place. It was just called Gold, I think it
It was
was.
deja vu is what it was.
No, solid gold.
Oh, solid.
Let's move beyond. Okay, so you're seeing you're the young buck there, and you're seeing the head coach, and you want to like.
They had that much confidence in us, Julie,
That
that they
they
could
were
do whatever
all-
the hell they wanted to do, and they were
They
going to
were
beat
out
our
at the
ass.
strip club thinking
Yeah, thank you.
that they didn't.
I
have
didn't
to
see
be
no strippers. I
focused
just saw a lot of drinking.
in. Okay. Shall we move on?
Yes, we should.
Love you, Brian. Appreciate the honesty there.
Hey, it's honest. It's true.
I don't even know. I have no notes to keep up on where we are. They mean nothing to me.
We had fun too now.
I heard it because my brother was there with a
I
friend of
came back
mine.
and told the story.
came back
Everybody
and
had to
told
tell.
me.
I'm
He
like,
reported to you
Jim
what
Kelly
happened.
was drunk
No,
last
he didn't
night.
say Brian Mitchell
It
was
was
there, but-
out there that they
And
were.
then it
Maybe
was-
that's where it came from.
What was the
Because
other
they were
dude?
out there.
What was the other dude? Tally.
Daryl
He
Talley.
was talking about some. Who they were arguing.
later told
I'm
me
standing there. They were talking about who's going to be the MVP. And I'm like, what the hell make y'all think y'all gonna win? I'm young. I'm talking trash.
Do you,
By the
do you
way,
guys ever?
this
do
dude
you guys
could have
ever
been the
arm
MVP.
wrestle? I would say, do you guys ever arm wrestle over this? Because you get
No, but he could have been
You were
just as
second
much
round,
the MVP
2
of the
interceptions
game
in
as
the
there was.
game. Like, I don't know. How does that go down with you guys?
Well, it sucks because the defensive players should get more MVPs than offensive guys, but they always.
You wouldn't take it from him? Come on. Sounds
He
like
would have
he's
taken it.
I went to get the. I went to
He's not
get.
going to say no to it
I'm
if they
happy
gave
with
it
the
to
way
him.
my life has turned out. You know, that's been all good.
But Julie,
you know.
there's no doubt he was
I
definitely in the
got
running. No doubt.
I have got.
I knew that. I knew they were gonna be talking to Mark. So I said, Mark, when you go, I'm going with you.
Right behind my daughters. I'm hosting her
Mark
up
got
there.
us there.
Let me pivot the conversation then. You say you have no doubt on how your life turned out. I mean, how has this impacted y'all's lives? How has it changed your life?
I might have had a few more speaking engagements if I'd have got. I'm kidding.
You got the MVP?
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Yeah, it's been great. What a great experience.
I just think winning that Super Bowl, though, this is what I've said this to players, and I'm sure people who've worked with me in different stations have heard me say this.
Take it.
All these guys like to run around to promote that they play with the team. I said, just win. And you don't know what. Hell, Doc Walker went to the Super Bowl win, and Doc still gets free stuff today. I go out a lot today, and I still get free stuff based off of being a Super Bowl champion here in Washington, D.C.
There's something to that ring you're wearing.
Hey, I'm going to tell you, Coach Gibbs told me this one time. He say, book just a regular seat, coach fare. And when you go on the plane, make sure they see your ring.
Does that work for you?
Moved up several times.
Does that work for you, Gary?
Because of the ring.
We all have.
And
Yeah?
I remember Coach Gibbs telling this when I was back in the day, and I have gotten moved up many times. So I still book coach flights, and I'm still trying to get them, trying to see what I can get.
Well, the doors it's open for my charity and my foundation, to would never have been there if it wasn't for these guys here and the Super Bowl we won in 91, 92. And it just opened up a bunch of opportunities to help others, and also, it hasn't been hurtful for myself either. So I'm very grateful and thankful, and it was a special year, and I can't tell you how special it was.
And what a great experience, though. At the end of the game, and this is something obviously all of us have, since we were little kids, we've all played the championship of the universe at some point in our life where you're either shooting free throws to win it all, or it's whatever it is. And at the end of that game, when we're in the last minute of the game, and I was always a player that it didn't matter if we were up by 20 with 20 seconds to go in the game, we might lose that game. So don't ever get confident. But at that point, you knew the Bills were out of timeouts. We were ahead 37-24, and the seconds started ticking off the clock, and the confetti starts to fall, and they start to play "I'm Proud to Be an American" over the PA. That moment, you go like this.
It's for real.
It doesn't get a whole lot better in athletics.
If it does, I want to be a part of it.
It doesn't get a whole lot better than that. And it was really, really, really special. And those last few moments as that time ticked off that clock. Yeah. So, and then we go in so you do all this post-game stuff, right? You do all the trophy and there's the commissioner and the owner and all this stuff. And then Gibbs comes, you guys remember this. So Gibbs comes back in the locker room he's in the locker room, and the owner leaves, the commissioner leaves, and all this stuff, and he pulls us all up and has this sort of moment of, you guys were champions, and he called us all up, and we all get a knee, and he goes, you played through adversity, and you came together, and you're champions, and you did this, that, and the other. But I need to remind you that I need your bags outside your rooms tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock, so we can go back to D.C. and figure out how we're going to do this thing again next year.
Yeah. It was like professional to
it was not within an hour and a half of the end of that game.
The game, yeah.
He had moved on.
Well, if he had seen me,
he had already moved on from that moment.
I wasn't thinking about next year.
He had already moved on, and then he got on the plane on the PA and talked about how much harder the next year was going to be.
Yes.
And
already talking about the next season.
Yeah, he was already talking about the next season and what we needed to do between the time we landed in D.C. and when we reported back for practice, all the things we needed to do. And I was like, this guy he is a machine. Like, he has already moved on. It was really
that was the awkward thing. Us going on the plane to the Pro Bowl with all the Buffalo Bills guys. We missed all the stuff, and the parade and everything, and it kind of sucks that they have always done that, and it should have waited.
I like
till
it how it was after everything's over. I don't want to play no Pro Bowl.
Before? Yeah,
Before,
that's
right.
all done
Right.
beforehand.
That's right.
That way you can enjoy the fruits of the labor with your teammates and
I agree.
appreciate that.
So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you guys a couple of plays from that 91 Super Bowl team. I just want to get your reaction, your thoughts. Let me know as we watch them kind of like what you were thinking as you went through it.
Okay.
So Kyle's going to bring it on over.
Kelly back to throw it. Up the middle, incomplete, and picked off.
Reception to Cabell.
Edwards. Brad Edwards gets the Redskins the ball back.
What's going through your head right there?
Of it all.
You know what I was thinking?
Don't fumble.
You don't fumble?
Do not fumble. Like, do not.
Tell us about that.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
was going on?
Well, you know, Daryl and I talk about this quite often, and he likes to take credit for some part of this, but I tell him often, and the conversation always ends with the fact that it's not lost on me that they were throwing at you and not at me at that moment.
Was that ball tipped?
Yeah, it was tipped. It was actually tipped, but
Big Mo tip it? You know he calls himself Big Mo.
Daryl tipped. Daryl reached
That's what I'm
back.
saying. He
And,
calls himself Big Mo.
That Charles just munched. Charles just munched.
He calls Big Moses Malone.
Yeah,
That's what
yeah,
he
Big
calls
Mo,
himself. Yeah, he's
so
5'8".
Daryl tipped that ball, and I all I can remember was thinking, score, don't fumble. Score, don't fumble. Score, don't fumble.
Don't fumble.
Yeah, don't fumble, don't fumble, don't fumble.
Charles Van help you on that too.
Yeah, right, Charles. Yeah, Charles, the pressure, and that is
That's when you could drive him into the ground.
yeah, right.
Loved it.
Yeah, I love that.
I was counting money on the
It was a
sideline.
little
That's what I
different
was doing.
day.
By the
back
way, I
then.
want to tell you, I've thrown some dig routes to Gary as I see him catch the ball, and I got hit. Catch the ball and come a couple steps out, and I got hit. And the guy goes, "Hey, Gene Tunney, it's okay. I'll call it next time." You know.
Next time.
That was
yeah,
okay. That was just the attitude, I think, of the NFL.
All right, so talking about some of your passes to Gary, let's go to the next clip.
And this time they huddle. 3rd and 10. Finer is replaced by Irvins, and he's the lone running back. Rippon is back to throw it.
Yeah.
Going deep.
Shift, trips left whiz.
Clark
Robert, 735 H pump.
from 30
C'est la
yards
vie.
away.
$36,000.
C'est la vie.
It's over at this
It's
point. We
over.
know it.
But look at the ball placement.
Well, I took. No one takes a 9-step drop. I took a 9-step drop on that one. I just
You
said,
did look- I think
I got
you
to
look
get
kinda
back.
deep right
I got to
there,
get
Rip.
back there because if I get back there, this guy is going to be so open.
And then you went from under center.
Oh, I know. Well, I never took a shotgun
We didn't
snap
do
in my
shotgun.
life.
We didn't have
Which is
shotgun.
My
amazing.
life, which is another thing for Joe
Right.
Gibbs. Never took
Yeah.
a shotgun
Think about how
snap
different
in my
it was
life.
when we
Traditional
today.
football.
75% of your plays.
We didn't even try it in practice. Kind of like we tried a couple times, like, hey, you can stay home with your
Gary
family on a
Clark.
Saturday night, you know, and
That,
we ended
that's
up playing
scary.
awful. Hey, we're going to go shorts and shoulder pads on Friday's practice.
Is this about the time I went to you and told you when they?
Yeah, that's
Thank
about
you.
where you said, hey,
I
listen,
say, hey.
it's all yours, baby.
Yeah, I say,
just
Mark, when they
get those lines.
What do you,
There
what
we
do you
go.
remember, what do you remember of that play, Gary? No, wait, what do you remember of that play?
Well, I remember the guy who had talked a little trash to me, so that's when you kind of tell him what I'm going to do, you know.
This is what you told me you were going to do.
Who was
I'm going corner, ML, stop
crazy enough
it.
to talk
But did you tell me the real play you lied to?
No, I told him corner, ML,
Keep
stop
warming
it.
up, you're going to be done.
But did you run the play that you told him you were going to run?
Yeah.
And he couldn't defend himself.
No, but I mean, he's single. If I'm single,
You're open.
that's hard.
If you're single, if you're single, there's no one.
Oh, there's nobody.
stay in
Yeah,
Virginia
yeah,
again.
be careful. If he's single, like you're
It's almost,
It's all over.
It is confidence.
It's all over.
if it's single, it's almost
Convinced.
a disrespect.
Yeah.
There you go.
Like,
I mean,
how could
quite
you do
honestly,
that?
It's kind of,
I mean,
yeah, it's kind of disrespect.
How often do you ever tell somebody the play you were going to run, though?
This is where I got it from. 87 season, when we were playing the 88 Super Bowl, I heard a lineman telling Denver lineman what play we were going to run.
Yeah.
They were telling what play we were going to run.
Russ Grimm.
And I'm sitting, I'm like, what are y'all doing? I'm like, why are you telling them to play? I'm like literally saying this to myself when they're doing it. Then after a while, I figured it out because
Ain't nothing they
they
can
had
do about it.
prepared themselves in a way that I could tell you exactly what I'm doing and there's nothing you can do about it.
Psychological.
And when we train that way, just kind of like Bruns, when you train a certain way, I'm looking at nobody has out-trained me. I can tell you what I'm going to do, and there's nothing you can do about it, especially if you're a man.
Even if you got that, because you got that doubt in your head. You're like, he might be lying to me.
Because I've done it over and over and over and over and over
Practice it
again.
against the best.
That was a play where you told the defender what you were running, and he still couldn't defend against it.
Yeah, but to his credit, I could have been lying. I could have been lying.
But you
Do
weren't.
you think he thought that you were?
I think he didn't know. At the end of the
Okay.
day, I think
You were
he
that
didn't
good.
care. I think if he's a good defensive back, he's blocking me out anyhow. He's not listening to anything I'm saying. At the end of the day,
Right.
he's blocking me out. So
You don't know
but-
what's real and what's
So you told him to
not
don't play
real.
though.
Yeah, I mean, because if it's double team, then that's different. You know, this guy. If
Right,
he goes
if
to him,
he's
he's going to figure it out. He's going to throw it to a
if
space.
he's
that's
double
open.
team, we're going somewhere else, you know.
But you know, he had enough faith in me. He gave himself a couple extra steps.
You had him by
back.
7 yards. You're supposed
Yeah,
to throw
I
the
mean,
ball
Yeah,
to you.
we had.
Once I got inside,
My read on that play is Kelso, the guy with the domed hat.
Yeah,
you know,
And you've got man cover
It's like
the
looking at him
defender's
and saying,
inside and he's
yeah, it's like
outside,
outside.
and running
It's-
a corner. It's
over.
like-
It's over.
all
As a
over.
former quarterback, I'm asking this question. What you were saying, don't miss this.
No, if I miss this, I'm going to be
But the
and
ball
deservedly so
placement
be
was
mooed like the
perfect.
son of a gun. Well, yeah,
Perfect.
No.
Perfect route.
But it was so
perfect
easy.
ball
It was
placement.
like
Yeah.
it was like what we
I mean, he
practice.
does everything.
We practice this hundreds of times. I mean, whether it be Alvoid Mays, Martin Mayhew, or Darryl Green, he's running a route against the best in the world on practice that Friday.
At full speed.
And
Full
failing
speed.
a lot of the time
Because we know
these guys
Gibbs
are
doesn't
so
let you
good.
go anything but.
Nah, we don't go. We don't do no half.
What's great about
Which
that,
we love about that too.
and you know
That's-
what's interesting about that year for our defense, and what helped us was that you had Frank Wycheck and Keenan McCardle. And Ray Brown is a lineman who's went on
Simmons
to Ed
was on
Simmons, who couldn't make the team, but were on the practice squad.
John Settles, I think, was
Ray
there
Brown
still.
played 20 freaking years in the NFL.
Yeah, Ray Brown, Keenan McCardle, and Frank Wycheck all had, I don't know, 15 plus Pro Bowls between them.
And this is what this is what you know about Joe and his staff.
This is a practice
at the time. This is how far into the future they see things. The 87 season, 88 Super Bowl, he's on the sideline charting.
I've got this
Charting.
nice sweater on.
He's not on the field.
I'm working on
look
my
up.
penmanship.
But look at the foresight that they have. That's my point. Like, your people that you have on your team,
You've seen it before.
your second team, your third team, quite honestly, they should be as good or better than your first team. And that's when you win consistently.
But I say the love we have as brothers in this room comes from that 87, 88 team. Every single one of us walked out during that strike. Every single one of us came back together. I had no idea I'd even have a job. I'm the third string quarterback on a pretty good football team. I didn't know any idea. The guys that played ahead of me, whether it be the kid from Tennessee or Ed Rupert, were incredible players, and I might be gone. I had no idea. But Joe Gibbs honored the fact that we as a group walked out together.
Actually, he told y'all to stick
he told
together.
us stick together on this thing. You know, when you come back, and our guys played pretty good. And
I'll tell you, they went 3-0.
knock on wood.
Yeah, when you
And
they
when
beat-
you
they beat
listen to
Dallas
me.
in
We
Dallas.
talked earlier about coaching. I don't think we
and
giving.
the Cardinals. The Cardinals at full strength.
I don't think
Dallas
we-
is almost at full strength.
I don't think we gave Coach enough credit.
Nope.
That man took Scab team and went and
Coach and
beat
Bobby
them dudes
Bettman
at
and all those guys.
98%
Yeah, totally.
with their best players on the
Totally.
team. Listen to me.
That's why I don't
always
hear
tell
any
people, I
excuses when
say,
you cannot put the team
you
together that
don't
quick.
have a great coach without great players. You can have great players without great coaches.
Right.
But this man right here somehow took a great player and made him exceptional.
The foresight and that
Yeah.
they had.
So
And you have Bobby,
let's
too,
get
though.
to that moment between player and coach with our
big
last clip
difference.
here.
This is a young man, too, man.
Yeah, I know. This is a clip between player and coach in that relationship.
You get ready to say I'm going to Disney World? I'm coming with you, all right?
The only thing I didn't take B. Mitch to to Disney World.
You're not taking with you.
I took my kids. I should have taken
One
B.
of a
Mitch.
kind.
I just wanted the camera. I wanted the camera. But you know what? It tells you one thing then. This team cared about players like.
This is John Madden, by the way, talking.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
He
That's
said
my
you
guy.
had to get the face, the glasses, the whole thing for it to count. You had to get the whole head for it to
but
count.
hey,
B. Mitch and John Brad.
Me and John Brett, the special teams guys.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Here we go, baby.
We got everything he had. He probably had his underwear.
you
when he
start
was
the
there.
trend?
He loves it.
I think the trend started here.
It might have.
I think it started here.
What did?
The Gatorade over the shoulder.
Was that a first?
I did in the championship game.
You did?
The championship game.
You're right. You did. Yep.
Julie, I can find a camera.
Yes, you can. You've made a living out of that.
And you look good on it. Man, you look good on it now.
You're going to Disney with Rippin', right?
I say
And
when
I
you
didn't
go to
take him. I
say
took my kid.
no, I said when you go to say you're going to Disney, because I knew the camera was gonna go with him. I was
And then
going with him.
You got a $36,000 bonus for winning, right?
Yes. Yes.
Is that what they paid us? I don't remember.
It was 36 at that time.
No, he said it to the camera, $36,000.
I said to the camera, Blackman, Louisiana, I'm coming home, $36,000. When I got home, everybody was asking for that $36,000.
They took it off very
How about
quickly.
No. All the people that I was school with were like, yo, man, you said you got 36 grand. I need a loan.
Like
Is that it today?
36, no, I don't know what it's
What is it today?
Today it's 100.
200,000.
Almost 200
Almost
G's.
200,000.
If you win.
Yeah.
What should be a
More
pay
than
cut for all these
36,000.
guys? You know?
So okay, so let's get to today. What does it take? I know you're like, wait, this is a hard pivot. What does it take for today's team to get back to what you guys experienced? Who wants to start here? Gary?
In my opinion, they need to understand the tradition of the Washington football team. The tradition that comes to knowing what came before you, respecting what came before you, listen to what came before you, and ask those players that came before you, what does it take to consistently win? And having a true understanding, because until they get like 8 to 10 leaders on this team, it's going to be hard for them to win, because you need 8 to 10 leaders on the team. 8 to 10 leaders. Not just your quarterback and not just your middle linebacker or safety. You need like people that players respect. You can get in their face, they respect what you're saying, they're not mad, they're going to do what you tell them to do.
And they're going to be bitching and
So
moaning.
that requires a certain amount of veteran leadership.
Well, I mean, it comes from your play. Like, perfect example. Brian came in, he starts returning, I mean, not just a good return, man, like he's taking it to the house. Instantly. He's new, but instantly respect is born there. If you can play, we look at that respect part from you playing. The leadership is born out of that. I mean, honestly, you're not going to listen to a guy that necessarily doesn't play or doesn't perform, hasn't performed, because what credit does he bring to the table?
13 special teams touchdowns.
Yeah.
I mean,
And it's none of my doing. It's all those guys out there with me.
Lock
yes.
in.
By the way,
don't get minus now. Don't get minus now.
You know, it's like,
I mean, we got to curse
I think
on
what
the
happened
Redskins or
what, for us as far as that, and then I get what Gary was talking about. Those guys knew I was going to run the same way every time, no matter if it's right, left, or middle. I'm running as hard as I can. Once I get to the action, then I'll do what I can do. But I wouldn't let one guy bring me down. You know, that's embarrassing. They blocking their asses off. I can't let one guy bring me down. But I think it comes back to what Gary was talking about, a little bit about what it takes. For me, he's right. It takes leaders on a football team. But you need a coach who believes in himself enough that he allows those leaders to run the football team. There are a lot of coaches out there in the NFL who say, you know, I'm confident, I believe in myself, but they don't want to let players run the team. The players in the locker room can get more done than any damn coach in the office. And we know this. You know, we had our little kangaroo court and all that stuff. Guys kept you accountable. You know, I can recall I remember a coach who told me let the coaches correct the players. Well, if you're scared to correct them and I'm correcting them, why the hell are you going to stop me from correcting them? And I believe that this team is going to take a coach who allows those leaders that Gary talked about to help him lead the team. You know, help him police the team, but the coach has to be like Coach Gibbs was, consistent, day in and day out, whether things are good or bad. You can't be gung-ho when it's good, and then your message when it's bad is like, it's not part of me, it's more of them. You got to be consistent in everything that you do. You do that, you win football games. If you're going to be inconsistent, you're not winning football games.
Well, I think there's accountability piece. I think one of the things that Coach is great at, and he gave us a lot of levity in, is each one of us can talk about those Saturday night coach players only meetings, and we had one probably every second week during that run that we had, and just players talking candidly about what we need to do, and leaders that you never think, like Tim Johnson, get up there, and Monty Coleman get up there, and John Brandis talk, and Stephen Hobbs talk. I mean, guys,
Special teams guys,
were kind of our heart and soul. Then our leaders like Gary, and Art, who's probably the most quietest guy out there.
When he spoke, everybody listened.
But when he's
That's one time you
and
did.
I think that was essential, and that was huge. It was a part of like accountability between players. And then there was that piece that I think we sometimes miss, and that is we are also held accountable by the guys that played before us. And those guys came to games, and those guys were part of the games, and we knew the legacy that they left, and the Super Bowls that they won, and the NFC Championship games that they played in, and maybe they never played an NFC Championship game, but they paved the way for each and every one of us to do what we did.
You're the third.
And so when they came into the locker room, I just knew, I was like, oh my God, there's Dougie Fresh is here, and Joe Theismann's here.
Expectations. There's expectation at all the
winning
positions.
a playoff game is not good enough.
Yeah. The expectations.
Winning a Super Bowl was what we were measured by.
Totally.
I think even heard Joe say that in some video that's been done before. Mark's going to be measured if he wins a Super Bowl or not.
And the only way I'm going to be measured, and rightfully the only way I should be measured, is if we can get over that goal line. And that goal line was set before us, and those guys had an example, an accountability piece. They came around Redskin Park. They came around, not as a flock of guys, but guys here and there, and we just felt like, oh my!
It's like big brothers.
And if they saw something that you could do better, they would tell
us.
Yeah.
And they would
But see,
recommend to us.
there
Hey,
was-
this is how we did it.
It was somewhere where that got cut off. That needs to come back. Because
It's alignment.
as much as I listen to Ron Saul and all these older players telling me about stuff, I can recall Doc and other people telling me about those guys. So when Doc says something, Doc wasn't playing when I got here, you respect what he says. And it goes on and on. And I can remember Ernest Biner, hey, come by my house, I want to talk to you about something. And like I was saying earlier, talk to me about life. And then talk to me about football.
Yeah, it had nothing to do with football.
So I did the exact same thing with James Thrash. And I think that players like Terry McLaurin should have Gary Clark's phone number and call him on a regular basis. He should have more than just the people that play in the recent thing. He should know every damn
He should
receiver
pick
with
their
him.
brain. He should pick their
Pick
brain
their brains and
find
figure it out.
what-
And I think when you begin to look at it as it goes into every different era that you can reach out to, that changes the BS. Because you know what? Coaches coach greatness. But those players listen to great players are going to make it
When
even
it
better
comes
for them.
together, there is alignment between ownership, management, coaching, and players, and that all lines up. And when you have a great skill set among those players in each of those, you have an owner that's committed. You have a management that's committed and is skilled at what they do. You have a coaching staff that has the skill set that a Gibbs, has, or in today's world, a Belichick has had in the last several years. And then you have a player pool that, like you guys, that are skilled, that are together, that are healthy. And can make plays and have a great culture. When all that aligns together, then you have a recipe for success.
And I think Ron has that here. I just think this 2 years of COVID has been
It's been hard.
difficult
It's been
to
very
reach
hard.
out to players.
Yeah, it's been very hard.
He's mentioned to me that he would
They
love
were-
that dynamic.
I mean, last year, they couldn't meet any of their draft class folks in person. Everything was virtual. But let's end on this. I want to go around the table and ask each of you, what did that 91 season mean to you? And Mark, let's start with you.
This right here. This right here. What they meant to me. These guys, the commitment, the people they are, and who they always will be, it means the world to me. These are my brothers, you know, and it was a special year, and I could probably name the whole roster, which is ironic, but I'm just grateful. This opportunity to talk about these guys and this team. Thanks.
For me, it's I grew up with 4 brothers and 2 sisters, and always told my dad what I was going to do, what I wanted to do. And making it here to this team, I had a coach, Coach Barry Wilson. He said, if you go to the Washington Redskins, they're in the Super Bowl every 5 years. They'd already won in '87. In '92, guess where we were? Playing in the Super Bowl. So I'm thinking now, '97, 2002, we'll be back. But what it's like everybody here and everybody that's ever played this game that played for this team, you have a dream. You have a desire. And you understand when you put in the work, what you can get. And that year, I don't care what anybody says, nobody did more with the team that they had than we did that year. Because I can recall after going 7-0, sitting there when we went in the games like, they don't have a chance in hell. Because when I left practice, I knew what it was about. And then as I got older, I was able to take that in, and people were like, man, well, how you know so much? Well, I listened to these guys, you know, and the thing of it is, whatever I accomplished, whatever Gary accomplished, Mark, and also Brad, somebody gave us something that we took with us. And I think that's the whole thing. What I always try to present, and I want this to be presented to our team now. My phone number is easily available. I live in this area. I'm not going a damn place. You want to talk? Let's talk about whatever.
Amen. Yeah.
And coaches, you want to understand how deep this stuff goes? I'll talk to you too. Because the thing of it is, we all love this team, and we're critical because we love. So that's what it gave to me. It gave to me a connection to something that was damn great. And the man that led us, you look at him now. When that man touched something, turns to gold.
Yes, he is.
So I'm going to say, Coach, go touch Ron. Let's get this thing going, baby, and get it right.
I also want to say just one thing, just as far as the connection with the fans and media, is Tony Kornheiser ran that piece that I think just was the ultimate connection, that bandwagon, and it went. That was back when we read newspapers, you know. And that's when we looked at the newspaper and we opened it up and says, "Hey, you guys jumping on that bandwagon?" That bandwagon got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and it just exponentially went out the roof, you know. And so I thank Tony. I think we all know that him and Michael do, and on pardon the expression and all the good stuff that they have. But that was a big part of our connection with our fan base. So.
What about for you, Brad? What did 91 season mean?
It was a dream come true for sure. I mean, it was the culmination of a lifetime's worth of work, and competing and really falling into a position that you were, very fortunate to, really there's a degree of luck in anything that happens, I think, in life. And certainly that year, you got to stay healthy. Lots of things happen, but it's, for me, I fell into this great situation, and it's affected me. Here we are 30 years later, still talking about it. It was an amazing experience, seeing a bunch of guys come together from all different kinds of walks of life, and here we are, brothers today, and we all, from the West Coast to Louisiana to the Carolinas to Virginia, we just came together and formed amazing bonds together and competed at a very, very high level, the highest level that you can compete at on the planet, and it was really, really special.
Gary?
I mean, that season for me was all about meeting expectations. You know, I mean, by game, after we beat the Giants, quite honestly, because we didn't really truly get the respect that we deserve until we beat the Giants, because they had kicked our butt for like 2 years or 3 years in a row, you know.
6 straight wins
games,
before
right.
you guys got to that.
So,
6. Oh my
yeah,
God.
I mean, all good
Glad
games, but
nobody
they
told
still
me-
kicked
told
our
me
butt.
Waxed in those 2 games.
But
Whoop their ass.
the expectations, once we got past that, we expected to win the Super Bowl. And to fulfill the expectations, to me, is the most important thing. You know, and the traditions that came before us. Now, that position of quarterback already won Super Bowl. So that's why it was expected. Special teams, you had Mike Nance before B. Mitch. It was expected.
That's Wayne told me about it every day.
We had the, before
Mike
the
Nance was
posse,
better than you. I said, damn.
and you know, before the posse,
said that last
it was
week,
a
by
fun
the way.
bunch in the Smurfs.
And Bobby
so you had,
Mitchell,
yeah, I mean, you
Charlie
had all
Taylor.
these
Yeah,
expectations
history. Yeah.
that were expected of you to come in and fulfill. So you're supposed to be a great punt returner, kickoff returner. You're supposed to be a great quarterback.
job.
You're supposed to be a great defensive back. Safety. I mean, because you had we had Curtis Jordan. That's, you know, Todd Bowles. So it's different that you're filling those shoes all of a sudden. Expecting, you know, Murphy, exactly. That was a little bit before me, so I didn't have a chance to play with him. But yes, that's exactly what we're saying. For me, meeting expectations is one of the biggest things. I like to meet expectations, especially when nobody expects it.
Yep.
You start off that season, but, you know, don't expect us to win.
Only person thought we was going to win the Super Bowl was Playboy. And Coach
Yeah.
Gibbs did not like Buccaneers telling him that Playboy said it.
Yes. By the way, Joe Gibbs is the biggest word right here. Joe Gibbs,
yeah.
Joe Gibbs, Joe Gibbs, Joe Gibbs.
We love that man.
He is, yeah.
But
he
I
is.
just noticed something. I've been to Roanoke. I've been down to South Carolina for your golf tournament and stuff.
You never been to
Hell, I'm
Spokane?
going to Washington, man.
Come on, I'm bringing you in, baby.
All right, come on, Rip.
We got one. We got Brian
Let's
Mitchell.
close out the brotherhood.
Who went to
Can we-
Gibbs
let's-
to his to our reunion at his race? You were there. You were not there.
No.
I don't know if you remember this, and this is so quintessential Gibbs. So we have, I don't know, maybe 100 guys show up at this in 2010
Race thing.
at this reunion deal at his in
And he brings you all
in
in,
North
right?
Carolina. Yeah, he brings us down to North Carolina for 2 or 3 days.
For 20 years there.
Yeah, and so he's standing up in his race shop. You know, he's got this
All white.
amphitheater, and he's on a stage, and he's talking. He's welcoming everyone back, and he has this moment where he's going through the schedule, and he's reading down the schedule, and there was a question about something on the schedule. I can't even recall what it was, but there was a question about it, and he looked down at, it might have been, I can't remember who put the schedule together, and he looked down at him and gave him that little look like, why is there a question? You know, this vein popped out on his neck, and he was like, and I was like,
Almost like he's coaching.
did you see that? Like he was like, why is there a question on this schedule? Like
He's still there, man.
it's still there.
Yeah.
By the way, I hear you called all the defenses, and you had a really high, you had somebody with a really high pitched voice calling the defenses.
Oh, we're gonna go there. Are we? I got some bass in my voice very quickly.
Bring a little bass to
I got a little bass. Oh, it was that way early
Whatever he
on.
had is work. It worked. That's
It
all
worked.
that matters.
Early on,
He
yeah.
did.
Yeah.
I tell you, the hardest thing for him was home games.
Oh, it was crazy,
Why?
yeah, because
Because there's so much
Crowd
there was so much crowd
So you
noise.
had
and-
to go high pitched in order
Yeah,
for
the safety unlike lots of every other defense, the safety ran everything that happened there. So anything that moved in that defense, the safety ran, and so you had to learn it. Kind of like Mark had to learn.
quarterback.
You know, the offense, you had to learn it at that level. And and I remember the first time I had to run out in the 90s season and run that huddle. And I can remember running out there going, okay, this is that moment in your career when this is your career moment. You're going to run this huddle. And I can remember thinking back to Richie Pettibone looking at me at the sideline, from the sideline, and going, okay, just give me a real simple, just give me like 43 jet strong zone and something easy that I can just repeat and break the huddle and act like I know what I'm doing. And he gives me like 65 Bronco exchange, open eye filter switch, Minnesota catch cut. You know, and I'm like, I don't even know what does that mean? Like, what is that? You know, with a text in the middle of it.
So you have to say all of that in your high-pitched voice.
So I go, okay.
And then remember it.
So I can remember thinking like, oh my God, okay, just repeat what the guy signaled in and then worry about what you have to do later. So it's like 65 Bronco exchange text, open eye filter switch, Minnesota catch cut. Ready, break. I actually did it. I did this thing.
What does it mean?
I did it. I don't know what that meant, and I don't know what I'm supposed to do, but I got it.
That is crazy.
And so I get this out of the
That bullshit that we say.
That is crazy. Oh my
Right,
God.
and we break the huddle, and all of a sudden there's this hand that reaches over my left shoulder pad and grabs my shoulder, my jersey, and lifts me up on one. Now I'm 6'2", 205 pounds. I'm one of the smaller guys on the field, but I'm not a small guy in the general human population. So I look up, and it's Charles Mann has got me lifted up on one foot. And he's 6'6", 290. He looks like Michelangelo has chiseled him out of a block of stone. I mean, like this guy is like, there's no human
like that today, too,
on the planet that looks like Charles Mann. And he's got me up on one foot, and I'm like, oh my God, like this. I'm looking up at like this. He goes, look here, kid. And he called me kid. He says, look here, kid, you better get some bass in your voice before, if you want to call signals here. And he shrugs me off like that. I'm like, oh my God. Like there's Charles Mann, there's Wilbur Marshall, who's the first guy that ever made $1 million a year in the NFL.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, Charles should be in the Hall of Fame. Daryl's obviously in the Hall of Fame. You know, there's this collection of guys that have not one but 2 Super Bowl rings already, and you know it's an intimidating environment, and then Charles has got me like this, and I'm thinking like, oh my God, what do I do with this? like I go back to my like
I put bass in my voice now.
I go back to like, okay, what was the childhood prison movie that you saw? You can either hit the bully, or you can be, something else could not go well for you.
Did you ever learn to get bass or no?
So I kind of like, well, I better buck up. I better buck up to this guy, or I'm gonna like, this won't go well for me. So I kind of I kind of turn to him like I'm gonna do something to this guy, and he starts laughing and just pushes me and goes, "You'll be all right, kid." He calls me kid again. And so
he's probably the nicest guy.
I was like, "Yes, sir, Mr. Man." It's like, geez. So we went from there to the next year, and I'm like grabbing him, like, because after plays, they're looking at the video board going, whose sack is it? That's my sack. And I'm going like, get your butt in here. Get out of here. It's like, quit worrying about whose sack it is. We got a play to call.
But you went up in your voice, though.
My voice went way lower.
Hey, Joe, get back here.
I went from an alto to a baritone like that.
This has been great.
Oh,
It's been fun.
Definitely, I love
catching
this.
up with you guys. I wish we could, of course, have everybody here tell us stories.
Well, I know they tried, and it's sad for COVID, but gosh, this is Julie. Thank you.
Yeah.
Cheers to you, gentlemen.
Cheers.
We get many more opportunities to talk. And you know what, though, Julie? Those stories get bigger. They
right?
I'm going to be really good in about 5 more
You're
years.
going to be 10 foot tall, 400 pounds. Look, the 1991 season, still to this day, goes down as arguably the best Super Bowl team ever. And there's a reason for that, and we just got to listen to a little bit about why that was. So thank you, gentlemen, for taking the time to chat with us and share. Here we are, 30. I mean, could you believe it's 30 years?
Don't remind me again. You keep reminding me.
Wow, that happened fast.
30 years. Oh, he's trying to say he's the young buck of the crew.
Yeah, he is.
30 years, Mark.
41.
I put on a pound or two, but that's all.
I'm 41. You can't be 37 again.
I'll be going. I'm 35.
Damn, y'all can't.
If we can make
I'm
us
celebrating
my.
I'm 68.
Then I wasn't even around.
It took me out of college early. What can I say? It took me out early.
Great.
Great times. Great times.
Hail to the Redskins.
Hail.
Yeah.
There you
Hail,
go.
baby.
Can we sing the song one last time?
Go for it. Yeah.
Hail to the Redskins.
Hail victory. Braves on the warpath. Fight for old DC. Run up at the score, we want a lot more.
Yep.
Beat them, fight them,
Doesn't at the point score.
Yep.
Fight on, till you have won. Sons of Washington. Rah, rah, rah. Hail to the Redskins. I didn't even know my college theme song.
Right. I know, I didn't either.
Braves on the warpath. Fight for old DC. Woo!